program tonight. We hope that you're being strengthened and blessed in the things of the Lord, and we hope that we'll be able to share some things with you tonight that will help you and give you some understanding on world events. I want to look at a passage of Scripture found in the book of Daniel first. There's actually two different areas that I want to go. There was a king, Nebuchadnezzar, who ruled over Babylon. Babylon is the other system. That is the period. That is the other system. It's where all the false religions comes from. It's where the corruption of the economic system comes from. It's where the desire stems from world government and unity against God. It is the revival of Babylon, both commercially, literally, and spiritually. Those are the three things that's to take place in the last days. It is that exactly in Revelation 16, 17, and 18 that God deals with in the final destruction of that whole system, the Babylonian system. Their system of religion, which is false religions, the Bible calls it a harlot, and their economic system that has destroyed the entire world actually and fed men's greed and so forth and so on. And its desire as Nimrod, the first Antichrist, was to rule the world and bring the world into a unity against God. That is the Babylonian system. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon in its heyday, at the time which it overran Israel and conquered Israel. He had a vision, and the vision is quite telling of the kingdoms of the world. In that vision, there was, in fact, the layout for the kingdoms of the earth and how that it would be impossible for those kingdoms to survive based upon simply how the kingdom was built, as was illustrated in Daniel chapter 2, or in Daniel where Nebuchadnezzar had the vision. He had a vision, the Bible said, of an image that had a head of gold. And it had chest and arms of silver, and it had belly and thighs of brass, and it had legs both of iron. And then its feet, with its 10 toes, was mixed with iron and mixed with clay. And the Bible told us that those two do not cleave together. In other words, it is the absolute weakest foundation that you could possibly ever build on. Two elements that does not even come together. Now, what you have is a picture of the world empires and the guaranteed collapse at some point of the whole system. That is what we're looking at now. That is what we are all sensing now. That's what we're feeling now. That's what we are knowing is coming. That is, in fact, what is happening in the world today, is the entire system of the kingdoms of man is beginning to crumble. And by looking at the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had, by looking at that vision, one would know straight out of the gate that any image that was built this way would be destined to collapse. Again, you have gold, a very heavy metal, silver, heavy, brass, iron, all of which are heavy, resting upon feet of clay with some iron mixed in with it, that the two does not even cleave together. So the feet that is holding this enormously heavy image up, at some point or the other, simply has to give away. And that's what is happening now as we talk. Now, as I've always told you, there will always be two sides to everything. What has taken place in the physical realm is because of some likeness taking place in the heavenly realm. There are certain areas of a city that particular demons actually rule. They have strongholds in that area. Those people will do pretty much exactly the same thing. The same spirit will be in authority over it. There's war in heaven. We saw this take place with the changing of the Grecian and Persian kingdoms. How that the actual war was taking place in heavenly places between demons ruling over those two countries. God had to send help to break it up, to go ahead and establish the Grecian Empire. There was war on the ground, but it was a manifestation of what was taking place spiritually. As examples that I've given you in times past, you can see the car moving at 70 miles an hour down the highway, but you don't see the power or the fuel that is empowering that car to move. It's not moving by itself. There's something inside that car that is unseen that is moving it. So is it with world events. So is it with local areas and even homes. Spirits that dominate, spirits that rule over those particular places. That's why we have to bind them. That's why we have to stop them. That's why we have to rebuke them, because they are there. And what has taken place in the physical world is a manifestation of strongholds that's been established over a nation or over a kingdom or whatever it may be. Strongholds that's been established because the spiritually strong has either died out, weakened, or gone to sleep, which is the case of the United States of America. Nonetheless, there will always be a spiritual side and a physical side. We, or those that are carnal, I should say, will always look strictly to the physical side of things, disregarding anything that is spiritual. That's what the evolutionist does. They look at the dirt, never considering where it came from. Like the old joke that's been told for many, many years that the scientists said we can make man now by ourselves. We can prove that we are God. We're just as great as God. We can make man out of dirt just like him. So they went out and got him some dirt out of the yard and come in and poured it out on the table in the scientific laboratory. And God spoke to them and said, start with your own dirt. They'll start with their dirt. They see dirt with no idea of where the dirt came from. They see a universe with no desire whatsoever to tell you where the universe came from. They'll see a Big Bang, but with no desire to tell you what caused the Big Bang. It's the carnal mind. It is corruption and it is death, period. But there is those who only see the physical. That's why they never bind spirits. That's why they never get freed from strongholds, because they only see the physical. And the spiritual is going to manifest itself in the physical. So if the physical is as far as you can see, then you're never going to attack the real enemy. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and the powers and the spirits of darkness and all these demonic forces in spiritual and heavenly places. That is where the war is. This is a manifestation of what's happening there. If you don't bind it there, you're not going to change it here. And that's a fact. So, with everything physical, there's a spiritual backing behind it. So it is with our world today. We are seeing and witnessing the collapse of the entire world system based upon the prophecy I've shared with you from the book of Daniel earlier. The collapse, a physical empire, the world kingdoms of man that cannot possibly stand. Gold at the head, followed by silver and brass and iron, standing on feet of clay. No way will it stand, and it's not going to. But there is a physical mind behind the destruction. As I brought out to you last week, a week or so ago, as I brought it out to you that we keep hearing these presidential candidates now tell us how that America's got the largest incarceration rate. We're imprisoning more people. And the reason that we're imprisoning more people is because America is a free society. No, China don't have the problems that we have. But you can't hardly breathe in China. Sure, Russia don't have the problems that we have, because they'll shoot you in the head if you do. We are a free society. Therefore, a free society must be a governance to itself, or either it's not going to work. Those that wanted to destroy America has systematically brought it down by destroying the moral value and the Christian component of this country. They knew what they was doing. That's why they took hold of the school systems. That's why they took hold of the government. That's why they've taken hold of your county governments. That's why they've taken control of the media and Hollywood. Everything that promotes any form of understanding or teaching, they have now locked it down. And the reason for it is very simple. That is to erode and then finally destroy the Christian element of this country, the moral element of this country, to destroy it so that the country will collapse into their hands of dictatorship. There is no way to be a free people and not be a law unto yourself. And the only way that you can be a law unto yourself is to be spiritually minded where there is life. The only way you can be a spiritual law, the only way you can be a law unto yourself is that you be born again. You override the flesh. The flesh is like a dog. It runs by a limbic brain system, which scientists says has barely evolved above that of a lizard's brain. It is the fight or flight mechanism that's in us. It's that it's run controlled controlled absolutely by emotions. The limbic brain system. So the further we get away from God, the more beast-like and animalistic we become. That's a given fact. Look at where America was, look at where it is now. Go into the countries where God has been cast away and cast out, and look at what they do. The further you get from God, the more beast-like you become. The more you become entrenched in the ideas that self is the only thing that matters, and destruction comes. Then you have the mindset that finally destroys this thing of socialism or communism, where everybody has to be taken care of as the children now that are being brought forth into this world. You see, intelligent people, wise people, productive people, they do not have more children than they can support, take care of, and tend to, and properly raise. So for every one child that is born from a good family, with a good prospect and hope for life, there is 1,000 that is born in ghettos from people who has no intentions of bettering themselves or anybody else. Ghettos and slum areas, listen, if you live in a ghetto or a slum area, listen to me. If you live in a ghetto or a slum area, your entire mindset should be on what you can do to get out of there. Long before you produce any children, don't you understand that you are producing children, 5, 6, 8 children, in an area, in an atmosphere that's controlled by particular demons, that the only influences those children grow up with and around are that's going to thoroughly corrupt them and destroy them and teach them the ways of destruction. Your mindset must be, if it's going to school, whatever it may be, how do I get out of this place and into another place? And you pray, and you make it happen. Now listen, brothers and sisters, I'm not under the illusion, are you? Do you think that we're going to live in a world ever until it's heaven? Until God has done it and put us here and brought the New Jerusalem down and cast all the eternal rebels into hellfire? Do you think that you are ever going to live into the world that you're not going to have liars in it? I don't care what you do. Do you think you're ever going to live in a world where there are not people who tell lies? Do you think you're ever going to live in a world where someone's not going to kill somebody else? Do you think you're ever going to live in a world where there is not poverty? Do you think you're ever going to live in a world where somebody in that world is not a personal failure? There are personal failures. That's a simple fact. Now, we're hearing now about the socialism, and we have a socialist, communist, now running for president, and doing pretty good. As he promises everybody to be able to go to school, as he promises that everybody will have the full maximum of health care, as he promises to give everything away to everybody. Now, there are signs that the federal government has posted in particular wildlife zones that says not to feed the animals, because the animals then become dependent upon people to feed them, and they lose the initiative to go take care of themselves. The government posted those signs in those wildlife places. Yet the same government wants to feed as many Americans as they possibly can, understanding full well that what destroys the drive of an animal to take care of itself destroys a human to take care of itself as well. You're never going to better anybody by giving them anything. The only people that's helped by giving them something are people who truly need it, not people who keep burning themselves with the same mistakes over and over and over again. At some point, the laws has to be applied that whatsoever you sow, that shall ye also reap. You're never going to get into the world. Okay, so Mr. Sanders, he wants to give everybody everything. He said that he wanted to up the taxes up to 90%. Here's the mindset. I'm talking about the crumbling foundation of that image that I showed you at the beginning. That's $9 out of 10. He wants to take from you and give to the government to feed and school everybody. Where's he going to get it? He says he's going to tax the mess out of businesses. Okay, do you know why America now is losing all of its businesses to foreign countries? Because of taxes. They take their businesses and they shut this business down, and all of a sudden 1,200 people's unemployed. They take it to Mexico. They shut this business down. They take it to Argentina or somewhere else. 900 people, 6,000 people, 5,000 people. It's all the businesses go. Why are they doing it? Because of taxes. Now he's going to up the taxes to 90%, and that's what he said.
It was 90. When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high. No. It was 90. When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high. No. It was 90. When you think about 90%, you don't think that's obviously too high. No.
So he's telling you he thinks that 90% is not too much to tax. But not only that, he's admitting that everybody's going to be taxed more. Now here's what happens as we watch this foolish brain destroy an entire world. Here's what happens. He says he's going to go into these islands where these business people send their money because of taxes. And he's going to close those loopholes where they have to bring that money back so that he can tax the money he makes them bring back 90%. What do you think those businesses are going to do? The one that's left here. What do you think? You think they're going to take their money out of those banks of which they've secured at lower rates? You think they're going to take that money out of there and bring it back to this country and let that man tax it 90%? There's not a chance in God's world that can happen. That's impossible. They're not going to do that. So what are they going to do? They're going to load their businesses up and go somewhere else until there's not a business left here to steal from. Then how are you going to pay for the schools and the health care with now people who he admits is taxed across the board? And if there is a company making shoes or socks or whatever they might make, who does allow him to bring their money back and tax it at 90%, what do you think that business is going to do with that 90% increase of the taxes? They're going to apply it to the product. That's what I've tried to tell you over and over and over. Do not believe it when the government tells you, oh, you're not being taxed. Do you pay tax on the candy bar? I'm talking about if you're in first-class poverty, watching a TV. If you're in first-class poverty right now, when you go down to the store, do you pay taxes? You pay taxes on the candy bar you buy or the beer you buy? Do you pay taxes on the clothing that you buy? If you up the taxes on the business that makes the product, the business that makes the product is going to put that increase of the tax into the product, and they're going to tell you you're not paying tax, but when you go down there to buy something that costed $1.10 last month and it costs $1.60 this month, you know why? Because they're adding the tax they got stuck to them. Now, you've done been taxed heavier, and now you're paying heavier taxes because this one business might have let him take their money from the Cayman Islands and bring it in, tax it for 90%. They stuck the 90% in there, and how are you going to pay for it? How is what is left after all the businesses is left America? Because if you think for 1 minute that a business with any monetary sense whatsoever, who's already sent their money somewhere else because of the extreme, we, America, are the highest taxed country on the earth. These people keeps throwing out these illustrations of all of these other countries. Has been feeding these people and taking care and giving them schooling, all of them. Yeah. And all of them are broke. And they've been broke and went broke long before we did. And they did all that mess because those countries were protected by our military. They didn't have to have a military of their own. So they played around with everybody's money until they broke the whole system with us providing their defense. It is insanity, friends. It's absolute insanity. It can't work. It won't work. You cannot give to people because then people do not appreciate what they have. They do not appreciate their lives. That's how come used cars or cars that are rented is never taken care of like cars that you paid for. See? And then there's the passage of Scripture that I've shared with you before. That passage of Scripture where Jesus is talking about the parable of the talents in the book of Matthew. He was going on a journey, and the Lord said that the man gave 10 talents to one, 5 talents to another, and 1 talent to another. That's money. Right there in the story. In Matthew 25, I believe it is. He gave 10 talents to one, 5 to another, and 1 to another. Where is your so-called equality? That's not equality, that's judgment. The man he gave 10 talents to was a proven man who was able to handle the money. The man with the 5 talent had somewhat proven himself. The man with the 1 talent still had much to prove, and so he gave him only 1. Now prove yourself and you can earn your way up the ladder. But exactly what would be figured to happen did happen. Jesus came back, the Lord of the house came back. The one with 10 talents had increased his 10 talents more. That was a 10-talent profit. The other with 5 talents increased his to 5 talents. The one with 1 talent did absolutely nothing with it, didn't even put it in the bank, the Lord said, to draw interest, but dug a hole and put it in it. The final outcome of that was, he said, you take the 1 talent from him that had it and give it to the one that had 10. The only way things works is for it to be in the hands of productive people. That's the only way the poor is going to survive. Whenever you get these liberals and you get these socialists and you get these communists talking about upping the taxes 90%, man, I'm asking you to shake yourself, open your eyes up, see something more than a rat's free piece of cheese. Open your eyes up and ask yourself the question, how in God's name is anybody going to make it? No country on earth ever that has gone this way of socialism has ever survived. There is not one single example of survival. It has never worked. It never will work. The problem is these are the physical forces dominated by those spiritual beings called demons who wants to destroy the world and collapse it into their hands, a total worldwide dictatorial power. That is what they are doing. That is what is happening right now, because this is as senseless as a sprayed roach. Do you understand? There is no way a sound mind could think that you're going to pull a business's money out of and bring it back here and tax it 90% and them stay here. And once the business is gone, brother, the jobs are gone. And once the jobs are gone, you turn into Venezuela or somewhere else for a very short time. You go down to your Walmarts and your Sunflowers and your grocery stores and your dollar stores, and there ain't nothing on the shelves. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen because of this deformed brain, corrupt as it is, evil, desiring nothing more than world control, to break an entire system down, make it collapse in their hands so that they, as their self-esteemed elite, can rule you and control you with government, religion, and its economy. You become the puppets, and they're using you, just as Hitler, or just as Russian leaders said in Russia. They used what they call the useful idiots to come to power. That was what the Russians said. That's what Stalin and them said. Look it up on the internet. Useful idiots. That's what they called them. Useful idiots. They used them and then they destroyed them.
Take a load off of you. Just put it on my back and I'll carry it too. You look like you could use a day or too. Get yourself some rest now, and while you do, I'll carry that load for you. Now all of these troubles they're not yours alone, 'cause you my brothers and my sisters, and this is our home. Won't you take yourself a day or two and get yourself some rest now, and while you do, I'll carry that load for you. Oh, that's the way it should be. I help you and you help me. We got to live as brothers. Got to have some love one toward another. I'd like to take a load off of you. Just put it on my back and now I'll carry it too. You look like you could use a day or two. Get yourself some rest now, and while you do, I'll carry that load for you. That's the way it should be. I help you and you help me. We got to live as brothers. There got to be some love one toward another. And let me take that load off of you. Just put it on my back and I'll carry it too. You look like you could use a day or two. Get yourself some rest now, and while you do, I'll carry that load for you. I'll carry that load. Just put it on my back. I'll carry that load. I'll carry that load. I'll carry that load. Get yourself some rest now, and while you do, I'll carry that load for you. I'll carry that